Hey, what's up, guys? You downloaded a brand new episode of Speaking Wrestling with Elvis Arroyo, and as always, I am your host, Elvis Arroyo, and this is episode 29, and this week we are speaking Raw, Smackdown. Gonna give you guys what to watch, also my MVPs and floppers of the week. But before we get started, guys, I want to give you guys a quick reminder to head on over to our YouTube page, hit subscribe. You can also follow us on Twitter at Speaking Wrestle, and over on Instagram at Speaking Wrestling. Alright, guys, so let's get going on with the show. This week's Monday Night Raw episode was live from Cleveland at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Not the Q anymore, not the Quicken Loans. Also hometown of Vic Joseph, Raw lead announcer. And this was a good show, but not a great show. I will say that. It wasn't the best show. It wasn't a terrible show, but it was a very entertaining show. A lot of good things came out of it, and a lot of, not so good things come out of it. We're going to get into all that. But it did feel like it was Bizarre World, and Cleveland, great audience, but I felt like they were a little bit quiet last night than usual. But nonetheless, Ric Flair came out, opened up Monday Night Raw, and it's always so good to see Ric Flair out there. And, the great things about Ric Flair is that you never know what he's going to say. And last night, it seemed like sometimes he was going to go off the rails on his promo, but, Rick is, he's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT, so he knows how to handle himself. I'm sure everybody back there was just like biting their teeth thinking what the hell he's going to say, but nonetheless, very entertaining. And of course, he's there to plug in Crown Jewel with the big Hulk Hogan and Team Flair matchup coming up with their respective teams of 5. And Ric Flair was here to announce his last member on his team. And here comes the returning Drew McIntyre, chosen to be on Ric Flair's team. And this is a hell of a pick for Ric Flair's team, and Drew McIntyre, who, in every way should be right now a Universal Champion, if not, in the Universal Championship realm. I mean, with the storyline with Bray Wyatt, which of course we're going to get into Seth Rollins into the show, Drew McIntyre would be a great substitute these past months, if not coming out off of WrestleMania or coming off of SummerSlam, for Seth Rollins to have an opponent, and Drew McIntyre is that opponent. He's a standout heel. He's a great matchup for Seth Rollins. That they have great matchups, but we're not here to talk about Seth Rollins. We're here to talk about Drew McIntyre, who had a great match once again, coming back off an injury, but he had a great match with Ricochet. Once again, these two had great chemistry. Ricochet can have a great match with anybody, but right now he's also in a spot, where he is not being elevated. He's not getting that push like he should, and of course, his promos need a little bit of work. His in-ring stuff is tremendous as always, but Drew McIntyre picks up a very impressive win on his return, and of course, joining Ric Flair's team at Crown Jewel. And of course, this show also building up to Crown Jewel. A lot of stuff in this show. We saw the return as well of Sin Cara, who had a great match with Andrade. These two have great chemistry. It's very nice to see them go out there and have a match like they did in the time that they were given. Also, new 24/7 champion in one of the Bali brothers, one of the Singh brothers, picking up a win over R-Truth, and of course R-Truth, being so entertaining. And it looks like the 24/7 championship has found its home on Monday Night Raw, that being because R-Truth was drafted over to Monday Night Raw in the WWE draft, which of course makes it now viable to be only defended on Raw. But who knows, maybe will we see the title flip when it comes to a pay-per-view? I'm sure that's where it's going to get to. And again, look, I know that they're having fun with that title. It's a great title to be featured on the show if you're someone like, the Singh brothers, or, like a Jinder Mahal, or somebody else that we don't awfully see. It'd be great to see Mojo Rawley, get a shot at it. But I keep saying that title needs to get on someone that, isn't going to have people chasing after it, more of, strategizing how to defeat him, because having someone that like a Samoa Joe, a Cesaro, Braun Strowman having that championship, and opponents going after him, strategizing on how to take him down, I think it brings a new layer, a new element to the title than it just being another comedy spoof championship. I mean, you had Rey Mysterio going out there, and it sounded like another genuine promo, almost sounding like a retirement promo, and the crowd letting him know it, thank you, Rey, and all that. And Shelton Benjamin coming out to interrupt them and cutting one of the best promos that he's cut since coming back to the WWE. Hell, since since being in the WWE, and a very in-depth promo about his relationship with Brock Lesnar, going back to when they were roommates and teammates in the University of Minnesota when they were wrestling there. Good stuff, and all that just to be thrown away by having Cain Velasquez come down. And look, no disrespect to Cain Velasquez, but what he brings to the WWE at this moment isn't working, and it isn't working for the crowd. It isn't working for the story that they're being told, and this really, in all intention purposes, kind of killed a good moment for Shelton Benjamin and for Rey Mysterio. And again, this is where WWE isn't really keeping up their end about, Cain Velasquez being on SmackDown, and here he is showing up on Raw, and it only got me to think, like, this is a SmackDown storyline being told on Raw, and the fact that Rey Mysterio is very well wrapped up, and the only reason why Cain Velasquez really has a purpose now in WWE, it's because it's been told in the storyline purpose that he is, the godfather of Dominic, Rey Mysterio's son. And to have Rey drafted over to Raw, but the Brock Lesnar Cain Velasquez storyline is brewing up over on SmackDown. But Rey is that viable piece. He's the glue to the story, and he's what's going to have people possibly in Cain Velasquez's corner, that being the fans and the audience, because they don't take to his story and what he brings, but you add that element of he's, related to Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio is a fan favorite. He's very likable by everybody. You're going to tend to root for Rey Mysterio, and going up against, Brock Lesnar, and the way that Brock Lesnar became the WWE champion, and once again the WWE championship being put on Brock Lesnar and not being featured on a weekly basis, just like the way that title was. But with a segment like this, it really doesn't help Cain Velasquez, doesn't help Rey Mysterio, it doesn't help Brock Lesnar. He doesn't really need any help because at the moment he's a bigger draw than anybody else, but it certainly doesn't help somebody like Shelton Benjamin, who at this moment needs anything to get some attention, to let it be known that Shelton Benjamin is worth something. I mean, this guy's a veteran, and he's a class act. He's got all the talent in the world, and that promo that came out of Shelton Benjamin was very real, very honest, and it had something going for Shelton Benjamin just to be thrown away on a segment like that. A total miss for the WWE once again. And then you go into the Rusev, Lana, and Lashley, and which I haven't been so critical because I've actually been enjoying this. And since the moment that this storyline came about, when Lana and Lashley made out up on stage on the season premiere of Monday Night Raw, I loved it. I had a good time with it. I thought this was some good stuff. I thought this is going back to WWE's Attitude Era, to the ECW. I mean, and it's being told and written by Paul Heyman. So, of course, this is good stuff. But once again, WWE, it's something that I said very, very early on. I might have said it the first episode of Speaking Wrestling, that with the Bray Wyatt character, and this went back to the Matt Hardy character and Bray Wyatt, WWE will strike gold with something one week. They think that they got the formula, and then they're just going to add on to it, and they add too much that it just kills it for me. And they've done that with the Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, and it's something that I thought they were going to do with The Fiend, and I talked about it then, that I hope they don't do it, because The Fiend is something very special, but here we are now, and look what they're doing with The Fiend. But we'll get to that. But here's a storyline that very entertaining, and it has people intrigued. Whether you agree with it, it's not in your taste, it's not in your wheelhouse for what type of entertainment you like, you're talking about it, you're shitting on it, you're tweeting about it, you're watching it, and that's good, that's great. But when they go into this, like they did this past Monday night, it really takes you out of it and reminds you that WWE is capable of ruining something good. And to me, up until this point, they ruined it with the whole makeshift restaurant segment and Rusev going in there, and then the police or security, which is just so hokey that you can tell that, they are rent-a-cop. It just takes you out once again that this is all set up. If they really would have done it, they would have just had Rusev go in there, have no security or police go in there, and just have the other men that are in there having dinner with their spouse, their wife, their husband, their family, whoever, their business associate, break up that fight. As soon as the cops came in here, or the security, whatever you want to call it, can't even call them that because they weren't that. It just ruined it for me. It took me out of it. And of course, it's like I said, it's a makeshift restaurant. It's not a real restaurant. If they would have gone to an actual restaurant across the street or somewhere around Cleveland, I mean, I hear so much about the great food in Cleveland that you got to go to Cleveland. They've got this main street right there, right off the arena, right out of the stadium. Go there and have food. Can they go somewhere and have a meal and film it there? Give it that realism. But when you have it set up like this, you have the fake security, the fake cops, whatever. You have clearly Rusev is going to go after them. Once you see that Lana and Lashley are at a restaurant, you know goddamn well that Rusev is going to make his way over to that restaurant, and we're going to have some fucking brawl like they did, and it's going to look like shit like it did. So WWE, up until this point, the storyline just took me out of it, and I know it's make-believe. Look, Lana is not leaving Rusev for Lashley. These are professionals, people, okay? These are professional actors. They are professional performers, all right? I have no problem with them telling a story that Lana is now sleeping with Bobby Lashley and divorcing or breaking up with Rusev. I don't have a problem with that because I know it's storytelling. It's entertainment. It's why we tune in, to be entertained by their storylines. But there's a point where it just takes you out of it when you know you're being fooled and you know that it could be done so much better. With all the resources that WWE has, with all the talent, with all the writers, with all the big heads working up there, why can't they not come up with a better solution? And quite frankly, I'm always thinking is Triple H, you got Jeff Jarrett, you have Bruce Pritchard. These are men that have been there when the crowds have been hot, when the arenas have been filled, when the ratings are going off the chart. Why can't they replicate that? Why aren't they trying to go after that? Instead, they're going for this cookie-cut format that they've been cutting for the last 2-3 years, really since the initial draft, 2016. That's when it all went shit. I mean, really, since this Universal Championship, it kind of was a curse to Monday Night Raw, and it still continues. There's this curse on WWE since this Universal Championship. There's something that WWE did wrong that they need to correct in order for the ship to once again steer the right way and lead us to that promised land. But they are missing the boat. And which is why they continue to have also falsely six-man tag matches advertised all week, leading you up to believe that the Street Profits were going to have a mystery partner, all to just get to, it's just the OC, Gallows and Anderson, taking on the debuting Street Profits in their first match on Raw. Finally, no more backstage promos, or so we think, because we still got the same thing, and only to take you out of it the fact that who I knew Kevin Owens was going to be their six-man partner comes out at the end of the match, and here we go with another AJ Kevin Owens storyline. First time it didn't work around, second time once again, and again, WWE trying to make Kevin Owens this fan favorite babyface, and it falls flat. And it falls flat because of their booking. I mean, had they just not had Kevin Owens come out and be their sixth man, come out as a surprise to be the partner of the Street Profits, it would have got a good pop. It would have made sense. But to have him come out at the end, it just takes you out of it, because what's the correlation here? What's the relationship? They're not really friends, so why would they tag? So I get if that's why they didn't really put them together, because it doesn't make sense, because it doesn't. But still, you can always pair up a babyface with a babyface tag team and go out there and have a six-man tag against a faction like the OC. But in this case, once again, WWE drops the ball. And at this point, look, I don't care about the Kevin Owens character. Nothing against Kevin Owens. I just don't think that this revival of having Kevin Owens be, the second coming of a Stone Cold Steve Austin hasn't worked out. And it hasn't helped Kevin Owens. And certainly the booking has deteriorated any possibility of even coming close of Kevin Owens being a top babyface, a top badass in this company. Is it too late? No, of course it's not too late, because we've just gone on to this new journey, this new chapter of this coming off the draft with the rosters being set up the way they are. Kevin Owens can still have a storyline with someone that's going to really put him in that babyface role. He can go in there and have a great story with Randy Orton and have Kevin be the babyface. There's definitely some beef there over some Twitter a few years ago. They can definitely tell that story now. Having Kevin Owens come out here the way they did really fell flat. But hey, like I said, Raw wasn't great, but it was a good show. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the worst show. It was an okay show. I mean, there are some things that I made it very clear that I did not like about the show, but there's a lot of things that, as a wrestling fan, I did enjoy about the show, and the fact is that there's more talent being utilized, and that's one thing that I've been saying on the show. We've all been saying the WWE has this great roster of men and women, and they are not being utilized. And this past Monday night on Raw and SmackDown on Friday, talent was used. And I was entertained by that. And it was great to see Aleister Black in action. It was great to see Andrade in action. It was great to see Humberto Carillo make his debut against the Universal Champion Seth Rollins. And speaking of Seth Rollins, has been catching a lot of flack lately, mostly on Twitter, and mostly because he responds to a lot of those tweets. Becky should really tell Seth, you really need to back away from the Twitter. But, Becky is the same as well, which, again, has always led me to believe that Seth Rollins getting so much heat on Twitter and picking up this side of him that we've never seen him on Twitter is because it's a little bit influenced from Becky. But nonetheless, Seth Rollins, look, the storyline with The Fiend has not done him nor Bray Wyatt well. Of course, we know that, coming off of Hell in a Cell, and it only leads everybody to believe that at Crown Jewel, it'll be a lot of the same. It's going to be a Falls Count Anywhere match. There must be a winner. WWE is going to come up with their shenanigans and get out of this one. And the fact that it's SmackDown superstar going up against a Raw superstar once again tells you that they don't know what they're doing with this storyline. And Seth Rollins, who had a great match with Humberto Carillo, who made his debut this week on Raw since being drafted over to Raw. And, Humberto Carillo is a newcomer. A lot of people don't know him. He had a small stint in NXT for several weeks, and then he moved over to 205 Live. He's had some great matches there as well. And this is another one of those great matches. And he's one of my dark horses. He's one of my guys that I think if you give him some time, you give him a great build, I think the fans can get really behind him. And last night, I think there's potential there. I think the fans saw that this guy is the real deal, it being his first night. And the first impression is a big deal. Doesn't pick up a win, but, you're going up against a Universal Champion on your first night. And I don't think that they're going to give him a win and then start leading into the thought of he's the number one contender, not Bray Wyatt. Why don't you have him at Crown Jewel or Survivor Series, the next pay-per-view after Crown Jewel into November? But the exposure and the respect from Seth Rollins shown post-match to Humberto Carillo tells me that this kid is destined to be something big in this company. And I've known it. I've seen it. This guy is great. He's very agile. Definitely, if they want to tap into that Latino demographic that I know Vince is always trying to get back into, that he's always trying to find someone to get back to the height that an Eddie Guerrero did. It's a guy like Humberto Carillo is your guy. He's a great babyface. He's got babyface written all over him. Another close, great Latino superstar is Angel Garza down in NXT. He's got all the potential to be great, almost the next Eddie Guerrero. Andrade is great, although he draws more the lines of an Alberto Del Rio because he's more of a heel, not really more of a baby face. But Carrillo, standout guy, standout match. Everything he did, his facials, his movement in the ring, the way he sold for Seth Rollins, terrific job by the kid. And look, I look forward to seeing more of him. I can definitely see him and Buddy Murphy having classics. So look forward to that. But speaking of Seth Rollins, once again, look, it's not doing it for me. His promos aren't doing it for me. His character at the moment isn't doing it for me. And with this match coming up with Bray, once again, it's not going to do anything for Seth Rollins. What do you do with him? What do you do with him? Is it Seth that's going out there and just following the script? Or is it Seth not pushing back on the company and taking control of his character? Because at the moment, in the eyes of the fans and the perception of the fans, Seth Rollins is losing stock. He's losing stock faster than Bitcoin is at the moment. Is there ways of saving Seth? Is there ways that you could have gotten out of this and not gone into Bray going for the Universal Championship? And once again, if Bray isn't successful, does that utter the fact that the Bray Wyatt character is already a failure just at the very beginning of this new character? And once again, is it going to put Bray back in the same position like he did when he first debuted? Because he debuted and he was a hot act. He debuted and he was very believable, but very quickly, after falling to John Cena and after falling to Daniel Bryan, he fell into that slot that he seemed to never get out of until this revitalization of the Bray Wyatt character with The Fiend. And it may very well be capable that Bray Wyatt, if he doesn't become the Universal Champion, or if they don't elevate him to a point that it's believable that Bray Wyatt could be your champion, being the fact that he's over on SmackDown, once again, him winning the title, taking the Universal Championship over to SmackDown doesn't make any sense. Bray Wyatt could find himself in that same spot that he did for all those years. And looking back over at SmackDown, Shorty G is official. Let it be known to the world that he is shorting his name as well to Shorty G, not Shorty Gable. But this really was the Roman and Daniel Bryan show, opening up the show with Shinsuke Nakamura and Roman Reigns, and what was a great matchup, but it ended in a disqualification with Baron Corbin interfering. And at the end of the show, Shinsuke Nakamura and Baron Corbin taking on Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. And what was a great matchup, good tag team action, ended with great action as well. Send the people home happy, some good stuff. But it only leads me to believe that this is still leading to a Daniel Bryan-Roman Reigns match. I mean, the whole Rowan thing, it had written all over it that Daniel Bryan and Roman are leading somewhere. I don't think Roman has officially apologized to Daniel Bryan for spearing him, because Daniel Bryan never lied about the whole story about attacking Roman Reigns. So I still think that there's still a story there to be told. And look, like I said, Brock Lesnar not being on SmackDown, you have Kofi Kingston being demoralized and taken down to where he's at, and then also with Xavier Woods being injured now. He suffered an Achilles heel tendon injury while they were on tour in Australia this past weekend. Opens up an opportunity for Kofi to move into a heel role or get out of the New Day at the moment. But going back, talking about Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan, this is leading to a match. When is the question? Is this leading to Survivor Series? Is the turn coming soon? Does the turn never happen? And do these guys both stay face as they try to make a valid point that they are the next WWE champion? Are they even in line for a WWE Championship matchup right now, with that title being placed over on with Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez and whatnot? Are these two guys going for more of a personal storyline, or at the end, does it end with one of these guys becoming the champion? Do you do this at the Royal Rumble, or do you have the story be told in the Royal Rumble? For all I know is that this is your main event matchup for the next several months. I hope so. There's great story there, the great history there. I think you don't have to turn Daniel Bryan heel. I think if you just hit him with facts over the years of the Roman and Daniel Bryan storyline, because there's a story there. I mean, these two guys don't work so much. They don't have that history of working a lot. But that storyline leading into the 2015 Royal Rumble, and what came out of it, and what could have been with Daniel Bryan had he not gone down with an injury, what could have their two careers been, had it gone in a whole different direction and not been Roman at the time, and they would have stuck with Daniel Bryan. Who knows? But I think the opportunity to find out once again who deserves that opportunity for a championship and to challenge Brock Lesnar, because look, this it could lead once again to that storyline at WrestleMania 31 with Brock Lesnar defending against Roman Reigns. But in that Royal Rumble, it really came so close that the fans wanted Daniel Bryan. They had a feeling that it's Daniel Bryan. He'd relinquished the title. He never lost it, and he was coming back for it. And what better opponent than a David and Goliath storyline with Brock Lesnar ending at WrestleMania? And whether Daniel Bryan won the title at WrestleMania 31 or not, I think that storyline was one that the wrestling fans really wanted to be told because it made sense. And I think it would have drawn money. And I think we would have never had this Roman storyline and perception that the WWE is going out of their way to put Roman Reigns in that spotlight and have him be the face of the company, though someone like Daniel Bryan's career could have been much different, and maybe the outcome, the reaction, the perception of WWE could have been different all these years had they just gone with the Daniel Bryan Brock Lesnar storyline. Can they redo the wrong once again? If it even was a wrong, who knows? The Roman Reigns, it didn't pan out the way they intended for him to be the top guy, because right now, guys, who is the top guy? Really, who is the top guy in WWE? Who's the face of the company? There's nobody that's a John Cena status right now. There's nobody that's a Stone Cold Steve Austin status right now in the company that's your go-to guy. I don't think it's Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns is still a top superstar in your company. And a Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan storyline leading into WrestleMania as who would face Brock Lesnar is a storyline that I think WWE would do great telling. All right, guys, what to watch for this week. This is where I give you guys what to watch, and this one came very random to me. It's one of my favorite matches. It's one that I was in attendance for, but I say random because you ever watch YouTube and you just let it play and it'll just play whatever. You don't really care what's playing on in the background. John Cena defending the WWE Championship against the WWE Champion CM Punk, also defending the WWE Championship. This was a main event, Triple H being the referee. I was in attendance for this. This is a great matchup, a great wrestling matchup, really. I mean, I was watching this and thinking, I've seen this match maybe like 15 times, but going back and watching it, well, I didn't go back. YouTube played it for me. But watching it back, I was just thinking, man, this is a lot of wrestling in this match. You know, you have John Cena, who was criticized for not being a wrestler's wrestler, not being the best wrestler, not being the most technical wrestler. But I say screw that. John Cena was everything. He could be anything. He was very adaptable to his opponent's strengths. This was a very good matchup. And of course, the end, Kevin Nash coming and jackknifing CM Punk, only to have Alberto Del Rio come down and become the WWE Champion for the first time right there in Staples Center. Great matchup, great ending. I loved it. I know it's very random, of course, because this is very random. A SummerSlam, what to watch in October. But I thought this was a good matchup, one that I can't go by without mentioning and recommending for you guys to watch this week. All right, guys, and it's time for Performers and Floppers of the Week. This is where I give you guys my MVPs and Floppers of the Week. My MVP of the week is Andrade and Zelina Vega. I just think that they were great on TV this week, and Andrade picking up a win against a returning Sin Cara was very impressive. And my Flopper of the Week, guys, is Cain Velasquez. Again, I don't want to come down so much on him because I did during the show and the segment. But again, this really hurt Shelton Benjamin, and it really hurt my viewing of the show. It really took me out of it, and it really made me want to change the channel. I didn't. So that's my Flopper of the Week. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Speaking Wrestling. Thank you guys so much for your time and your support. And as always, please help spread word of this podcast. It really helps this podcast grow. And you can help me out by going over to our YouTube page and hitting subscribe. You can follow us over on Instagram at Speaking Wrestling and also on Twitter at Speaking Wrestle. We'll be back this Friday with episode 30 of Speaking Wrestling. That's where we'll talk AEW and NXT. We'll see you then. Bye-bye, guys.